Purple Daily is daily Vikings entertainment. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die.
I will ride with this group.
Seriously, man. Please.
And away we go.
The summer list extravaganza continues today on Purple Daily. You guys have asked us to rank things, and so we are going to rank things during this offseason. And today, in fact, I want to give proper credit because I believe today's list, it definitely came from a listener. I don't think I wrote the name of the listener down. I pulled a Judd. I don't remember the name of the listener that gave us this idea today.
But we thank you.
We do. We thank you, anonymous, amazing listener, for you suggesting the most maligned Vikings in history. And Judd has a list. How many are on this list today?
There's 10, and just to be clear, when we do start, I drew the line at the year at 2000. So it's from 2000 on, because the maligned thing, like, we could get into a lot of things previously. You know, this team had a run of driving while intoxicated in the 80s that was incredible. Like, that's a whole nother list. So
I feel like all of America drove intoxicated in the 80s, though. You know?
But the Vikings got caught a lot.
Okay.
The Vikings got busted quite a bit back then.
By the way, I saw
Into
Tommy
the 90s.
Kramer announced on his Twitter today that, hey, as life slows down a little bit for me, he made an announcement. As life slows down a little bit for me, starting now, it's going to be non-alcoholic beers going forward. So he cut down on the hard stuff a while ago, switched to just beers, and now he's officially hanging up the drinking shoes and going. I mean, Tommy Kramer,
good for Tommy,
a legend, man. That guy can put down a beer too. So good for Tommy making the right health decisions.
The Rusty
non-alcoholic
Scupper Hall of Fame, Tommy Kramer. Congratulations, that's great.
What was it? The Rusty what?
The Rusty Scupper was a famous, infamous bar that was part of the 494 strip as players drove home from Met Stadium. It was Maximilian's, which was owned by Max McGee, the former Packer player, receiver.
Wow.
The Rusty Scupper. There was a bunch of bars on that strip, and the Scupper was very famous.
It's like in Bloomington, or where are we talking? Okay.
Yep. Right where Joe Sensors was in Bloomington, and is now a huge car dealership lot. The only thing that's left is the Denny's.
Oh, man.
The Denny's is still there.
Those guys, those former Vikings from the 80s, just pounding beers at the Rusty Scupper and then getting a Grand Slam breakfast at 2 in the morning.
I believe, if I'm not mistaken, also by Max's place, he also launched the first Chi-Chi's right there.
Oh, Chi-Chi's.
Max McGee, I believe, was involved. So he had his own nightclub. And here's what's really weird, because imagine this now. Max McGee and I believe Paul Hornung both had a role at one point on Vikings radio broadcast. Hornung did for sure.
What?
I know.
Why?
In the 70s. I have no idea. Well, because they lived here or something. I have no idea. But how weird is that?
I suppose, in the 70s, we didn't really have a history. There wasn't there was a lineage of Viking stars from the guys that were good players in the late 60s were probably still playing, right? So
yeah, but imagine a Packer now, like a lifetime Packer, just ends up in the booth doing Vikings games.
Yeah. Boy, I mean, that's weird, I guess. I didn't know the history of Chi-Chi's involved Max McGee.
I believe he was a partner in the first one, and from there it got franchised out, and it was great. Great chips, by the way.
John was the one who sent over the maligned Vikings.
John.
Look at you.
Thank you, John.
Look at you, Dak.
You buddy.
Okay.
We'll get to this list here. You know what's not maligned at all whatsoever is Quick Trip.
Oh,
it's the opposite of maligned.
God, no. Quick Trip is your first round pick. It's your first choice. It's the first choice overall. If you are, let's say driving home, get some gasoline, and then you're like, but we have nothing to eat. Well, you know what? You don't have to go to a restaurant. You don't have to go to a grocery store. You can go right in that Quick Trip. And I was going to say walk in, but no, au contraire. Because of the Quick Rewards app, you can actually order ahead, take care of the payment beforehand, and you can pick up curbside. So let's say you're getting gasoline and you're picking up curbside. You don't even have to go in. That is how easy Quick Trip will make your life. And that's why not only are they not maligned, they are your first choice for convenience.
Amen. Okay, the 10 most maligned Vikings in recent history.
Yep, last 25 years about.
According to Judd. All right, we'll start with number 10.
Okay, this list is going to go far and wide. This got a lot of thought. I did a lot of work to really, really pull from all reaches of Vikings maligned history since the year 2000. And I'm going to start at number 10, as we always do with these lists, with Josh Freeman. One game, and yet it has left a mark when you say his name. Vikings fans roll their eyes and just about puke. All you need to know about that glorious primetime game against the Giants in New Jersey that evening is that Josh Freeman had 33 incompletions. He was 20 of 53. I feel like 33 is more impressive, just saying that. He had 33 incompletions in one of the worst starts in the history at quarterback of this franchise, and that was it. So he is number 10 based on a recognition of a name that has essentially 4 quarters of work as a Viking.
What was the point of that entire exercise? So he's a former first-round pick. They brought him in.
Yeah.
Why bring him in? Why start him? So why bring him in midseason? Why start him immediately? And then why have him throw 53 times? And then why never play him again?
Okay, so this actually goes back to the 2009 draft where Freeman was taken by the Buccaneers, but Rick Spielman, who was not the GM at the time, but did have a say, loved him. Okay, so he from day one loved Josh Freeman. And if you recall, Freeman got off to a pretty good start. His career was going fine. But then he goes south, gets let go. And I've always contended this was a power struggle and pretty much a big league pissing match between Spielman and Les Frazier. And here's why. If you recall, they were never really on the same page about their QBs. This includes the Ponder thing. When Les actually had them sign McNabb because in his mind, he, to survive, needed a veteran. And then Spielman's like, no, I'm going to find a quarterback in the draft. Ponder, right? There was definitely, this was a franchise in which the key decision makers for this game in particular were not on the same page. And Freeman, I don't know if he was force-fed to Les, which I think he was, and was told to start him. And from there, Freeman was essentially the poor child in a divorce. It really wasn't his fault. He got thrown into a terrible situation that was a power struggle, basically. Yeah. But it is incredible for a guy that played one game. There is not a Vikings fan, since the year 2000. If you became a Vikings fan around 2010 or so, this start incites the cold sweats.
Man, he must have thrown like 20 of those incompletions. You said 33 incompletions. 20 33. Of them must have been like completely uncatchable.
Wind was swirling, and that ball was taken off. I went back and watched a couple of the passes a couple of days ago. I mean, it's incredible. The pick he threw, I don't know where it was going.
I was irrationally excited. That,
I was just jacked for this.
It's Josh Freeman. He threw for like 4,000. Didn't he throw for like 4,000 yards one year?
He was good.
He's like 26 years old.
Kansas State, he was good at one time, but man, was this that's a tough one. All right, so that's number 10. Number 9, when you do your research on this one, and it's bad enough to start with, but research makes it worse. Number 9 is Laquon Treadwell. Okay? And here's why. So in the arbitrary world that is where receivers get picked, Laquon was the 23rd pick in 2016. Now his career was a complete flop. 4 years here, 53 games, 65 receptions for only 701 yards, and probably most incredibly, 2 touchdowns. So 4 years, 2 touchdowns. From the 23rd pick in the 2016 draft. Justin Jefferson, come 2020, was the 22nd pick in his draft. Now, a lot of teams screwed up there, but he still fell to 22. Jordan Addison, a year ago, was drafted in the same slot Treadwell was. So when you consider, like I said, the goofy nature of where receivers go, but Treadwell is 9 because he's not maligned as in completely despised, but his name still brings up some really, really bad memories for Vikings fans.
It's always tough too when you come into the NFL and they've already given you a nickname, like a superstar nickname, Laquantosaurus Rex.
That's right.
Megaquan, people were calling him.
God.
And I remember the comparisons because he wasn't the fastest guy. He had leg injury in college, but people compared him to Anquan Bolden. He could be this big, box you out, red zone target. 3rd and 8, you need a 10-yard reception, just back the truck up, Laquon Treadwell. No, it didn't quite work out that way.
Yeah. He was a guy that I think by the time he left here was known for working on things he was already good at. He'd catch 1,000 balls. It's like, dude, you're good at or he'd run the stairs. It's like, dude, you're in great shape. Don't worry about being,
Yeah, your cardio's fine. Your cardio's fine.
Go work on what you're not good at, Laquan.
Let's look at the route tree again here. Okay.
I forgot about the nicknames.
Okay, number 8.
Okay, let's get into some good old-fashioned guys that just became despicable, maligned. We're climbing the list. Number 8, Bernard Berrien.
Oh,
not for how he came in, but for how he went out. Yes, he fits the definition of maligned. All right.
He had a nice little. His first season was pretty good.
His first 2 years were fine, and he came in as a big free agent target signing, so he should have been good, and he was. First 2 years, 48 receptions his first year here, 55 his second, a total of 870 receiving yards over those 2 years, 11 touchdowns, 32 games. That's great, right? Okay, but you're expected to continue to be good. Like, you don't just now get a free pass to suck. But Bernard Berrien in his last 2 years, 35 combined receptions for 343 yards, no touchdowns, was banged up a bit. I contended, but by the end, he struck me as one of these guys that didn't like the sport. And if you guys recall, he also said something about John Kreisel, who of course is on KFXN quite a bit, who served overseas and lost both of his legs. And Berrien, like, I think Kreisel tweeted, rightfully so, something about the lack of production. And Berrien, like, took a shot at John, which was just like, what are you doing, dude? And it was so bad that guys like Pat Kessler, who was a hard news guy at Channel 4 at the time, showed up to grill him, which means you really screwed up. I think Les couldn't
in
stand
defense
him.
of Berrien there, you're not looking at everyone's like historical bio and you're clapping them back on Twitter, right?
Yeah, I think
did he chirp him for his? Did he know who he was?
I think he chirped him. I think he chirped him directly. Yeah, no, it wasn't like a normal, "Hey, you're out of line, you suck" chirp. It was a very personal chirp, as I recall. But anyway, his production also like just went away. He went from being a productive player to being maligned, and part of it was in the building.
Yeah.
By the end, the Vikings couldn't stand him. So this was maligned all over.
Wasn't there some buzz that he wanted to become an actor or go out to LA? I feel like there was some. So I did pull up. So he does have a LinkedIn bio, which is kind of funny when like high profile NFL players go and put their bio on LinkedIn. And, like from 2008 through 2011, he was a wide receiver for Minnesota Vikings Football LLC in the greater Minneapolis area. Great.
Glad to know he quantified that.
He's also a minority owner in 3 high-profile restaurants. The same name has 3 locations in the Minneapolis area. Can you guess which prominent restaurant, like mini chain?
So chain, yeah.
Chain might not be the right word. It's not like an Applebee's or anything like that, but there's multiple locations that he is. So his bio says he's a restaurateur for this establishment.
In this area, huh?
There's one in downtown Minneapolis.
There's one in downtown, and there's 2 others.
I'll just say that the old Dex Tweets is very familiar with this establishment.
I like Dex's chance here more than mine.
Yeah.
There's one in downtown, and there's a few around the metro. And there's a
not
place.
not downtown, but like more
Smack
north
Shack?
downtown.
Smack Shack?
Bernard Berrien is a minority owner. At
What?
Smack Shack. Yeah,
Is he really?
yeah.
Well, he's doing good now.
Dude, move him off the list, man. He caught a
doing good now.
99-yard touchdown, and he helped
Yeah.
bring Smack Shack to life.
Wow.
I'm a Bernard Berrien guy. I don't know
My
about you.
view of Bernard Berrien just
Bernard.
went up tenfold.
Yeah. All right,
for
number
him.
7. Number 7.
Okay, more really fits the bill of maligned. Number 7, and there will be 2 guys from the same draft on this list, is the 18th pick in the first round of the 2005 draft, Erasmus James. So Erasmus James pre-Jared Allen was the last draft pick chance where the Vikings are like, we got to find a guy that can get to the quarterback. We look to the Wisconsin Badgers, and what better player than the guy who's sacking quarterbacks left and right? Erasmus James. 5 sacks in 23 games as a Viking, but it actually gets worse. He played in only 8 games and had 1 sack in his last 2 years. Here.
Yeah.
And he was traded, he was dealt, as I recall, in like June or July at one point to Washington, basically as a news dump, because the Vikings were trying to stay away from the coverage of this guy was a complete bust. But he was a complete bust. And he's maligned as well because he again fits on my list of, I don't think he liked the sport. Like if it
It's
didn't
tough,
come
yeah.
easy, he was a freak athlete in college, right? And he was really, really good. But then he got here and it was hard. I think he couldn't stand the sport.
You know, this would be a deep dive for probably someone else to do, but there was a time there for, going Laquon Treadwell and then all the way back to like the early 2000s. Is there a team in the NFL that was more boom or bust in the first round than the Vikings? I mean, hell, if you want to go like late 90s all the way through
That sounds like a list to me.
like the biggest booms, the biggest busts, I'll workshop this. But
Yeah, that's a
at
pretty good point.
At the high end, you're talking some of the best players that have ever been drafted the last 25 or 30 years. Randy Moss, Adrian Peterson,
Yeah,
Justin Jefferson. Throw Percy Harvin on the list, right?
Yeah.
But then you have, and there's probably some other ones. I don't want to spoil the list here, but you've got some of the most like laughable picks of the last 25 years in the first round.
Yep.
And Erasmus James falls a little bit above laughable because he was at least like, I don't know, a semi-productive football player for a few years. But it's, man, the boomer
pretty
bust
bad.
of the Vikings the last 30 years.
He's pretty bad.
Okay.
You're not wrong about that.
That's fair.
So
Okay,
Erasmus James.
number
is
6.
7. Number 6. Number 6 is also going to be part of the theme of this list. Number 6 is Blair Walsh.
6?
He's number 6.
I thought he'd be higher. I really did. This list is wild.
I tried to separate him from a guy who's yet to come, just a bit. And believe me, there are some guys that are definitely maligned to come. But Blair Walsh could have been 5, but 5's good too. And look, he went from being his first year fantastic, all those 10, 50 or more 50 plus yard field goals. He was drafted, but then it's like, oh, I get why he was drafted. He's got what a big leg he's got. And then he misses the kick in the playoff game that would have sent the Vikings to Arizona for a second round game. If Zimmer had any inkling that he might like kickers, it evaporated and went wide left along with the football that day. I think that was the day Mike's like, these guys suck. I have this defense that's great, right? Like we bashed our brains out in sub-zero temperatures for how long for this, and then this Yahoo misses what was amounted to a chip shot field goal, but they keep him. And then there was the game to open, I think it was the next season against the Titans in Tennessee. And Blair Walsh attempts a field goal that like, as far as I could tell, went to Memphis.
It was bad. Yeah. Okay. And again, we'll let the list play out here.
Yeah,
let the list these next 5 names are going to be fascinating. But just the nature of the missed 27-yard field goal. The Vikings had kind of arrived in their second year under Mike Zimmer. The defense is coming into form. Teddy Bridgewater is the starting quarterback.
Yep.
And you wind up You're in the playoff hunt in November, early December. You win your last 3 games of the regular season to win 11 games, and you're hosting a home playoff game against the Seahawks. By the way, Seahawks were this defending champion from, 2 years ago, I guess. But
they were very good at the time.
You've got this team that's a championship-level team in the bag. It's over. The game is over. It's a 27-yard field goal, and I get that it was like 30 below wind chill. That was also the year where the Carolina Panthers made it out of the NFC. Now, they were a 15-win team, but the NFC was kind of wide open. Like the Arizona Cardinals with old Carson Palmer were.
They would have gone.
I mean, the they had a path to the conference championship game if he makes that kick. So I don't know. It's going to be hard for me to not put him 1, 2, or 3 if I was doing this list. And then his career just derailed after that. So,
I had food poisoning all. It's the top 3 worst day of my life, physically, that day. On top of Blair Walsh missing a field goal, it's one of the worst days of my life.
Yeah,
I would take that.
There's more to come, Dex. You're young right now.
It's also for the YouTube and podcast audience here, Purple Daily. You know that Vikings Vent Line has been a YouTube show for the last 5 seasons. Well, it used to be a radio call-in show, and it would air on 1500 ESPN, and it would be a combination of me and Judd, or me with superstar Mike Morris, or Judd. Like, we've been involved in that show for 10 or 11 seasons before it ever became a YouTube show. I believe that Sunday I think that game was on a Sunday, wasn't it? Let's see.
Yep.
I
think so.
It was a Sunday. Yep.
It was the first game, I think, that day.
In 10 years, I believe that's the only time we didn't do a Vikings Vent Line, because we didn't have like a podcast or YouTube game plan. It was an AM radio station. It was 1500 ESPN, and the powers that be had signed an agreement with the Gopher Sports Athletic Department, and we had to carry a certain number of Gopher women's basketball games. And like contractually, we had to carry the Gopher women's basketball game that day. It was just some regular season game in January. And so, man, there was some poor producer working, and the phones start lighting up. Mm-hmm. And there must have been like 300 phone calls. Why are you not on the air? What is happening? I want to murder everybody right now.
It's a good question. Very valid question at the time.
So, yep. Anyways, okay. Now we emerge into our top 5 after we shout out the number 1 in our hearts, Nicolay Law, the number 1 personal injury law firm, the exclusive personal injury law firm of Purple Daily. Russell Nicolay and his team are proud to serve the Twin Cities communities that they live in. They're just your normal, everyday folks, the ones you see at the gas station, walking the dog, walking around sporting events. They just happen to have law degrees, and they're here to help you get the compensation you deserve after an accident. So if you've been injured, get Minnesota's local award-winning injury lawyers. Get Nicolay at nicolaylaw.com, or give them a call at 1-855-NICOLAY. And Dennis Kirk. So there's a fun event coming up that Dennis Kirk is helping to put on. July 13th from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. at Running Aces Casino and Racetrack. The first annual Minnesota Garage Build Bike Show, powered by Dennis Kirk. Dozens of custom-built motorcycles, hundreds of dollars in Dennis Kirk gift cards, local food trucks, a live DJ. Just a fun event. All details at DennisKirk.com, where you can also find 185,000 parts, apparel, and accessories for whatever it is that you ride. DennisKirk.com. Okay, number 5.
All right, number 5 has something in common with Blair Walsh, although they were 2 very different type of football players. Number 5 also had a great rookie year. Pro Bowl. I think in both cases, both were Pro Bowl players. But in this case, this kid was the 4th overall pick in the 2012 draft. Matt Kalil. Matt Kalil, whose defining moment, unfortunately, well, he's got 2 as a Viking. One will be his love of his pizza places, which actually he became far more proficient at than pizza football.
Pyology, right?
Pyology, yes. There was one in Mankato. There was, I know, no, I'm saying he became a far more proficient pizzeria owner than a football player. And the other will be after that loss to the Packers at the time, TCF Bank Stadium, when some kid heckled him and he walked over to the kid and knocked his hat off his head. It's like, dude, if you would show that type of passion for the game of football when playing, you would continue to be a Pro Bowl left tackle. Matt Khalil, though, became known as a surly, huge disappointment, because when you are, and I know he got hurt too, but when you are drafted in the top 5 as a left tackle, that is a 10-year stamp. You are expected to be the guy for 10 years at a position. I mean, knock on wood, we're hopefully seeing that right now with Darisaw, where it's like, okay, he gets a couple of big paydays, but the trade-off is you get your blind side of your quarterback protected for 10 years pretty damn well. Matt Khalil is number 5 on my list.
Do you think injuries soften the sort of the criticism there at all? I mean, his knee, before the knee injury, like with Blair Walsh, he just had a mental, I don't know, reboot at the wrong possible time. Mm-hmm. Matt Khalil, could you say that his injuries derailed his career, or do you think he was just more of a bust than an injured football player?
I think the injuries certainly hurt, but I think he was a bust. And if he had been picked, in the 20s of the first round, he's not this high. But the fact that the Vikings made that trade, because I think the Vikings went into that draft and they were supposed to pick 3rd, and they flip-flopped with Cleveland and picked 4th. But I mean, that's a hell of a bust.
So here's my new test on Blair Walsh, because I would have put Blair Walsh above Matt Khalil.
Me too.
If you were to poll Vikings fans, Blair Walsh or Matt Khalil, who do you despise more as a Vikings fan? I'd be curious to see what the result is.
Oh, I would say 90% of them would say Blair Walsh, and I don't think that's too low.
Yeah, my problem is I personally put Khalil higher because of of where he got drafted.
Yeah, no, I get where
so
the
that's
expectation for Khalil. I get it.
Kickers come and go, and look, there's going to be a prominent kicker very high. I guarantee you of that. So it's not that there won't be, but yeah, Khalil's expectation, you should have plugged him in. And I mean, left tackles have bad knees. Like, we've seen some great left tackles that battle injuries for basically their entire careers, but they're tough and they're not focused on pyology.
Wow.
And so it would have been nice if Matt Khalil
backing the bus
had been focused on his job.
Judd threw Matt Khalil under the bus, putting him 5th on this list, and then just drove back over his.
It's bad. It's bad.
And then threw an empty pizza box on top of it.
And he's only 5.
This is great. It's very therapeutic. Okay, number 4.
Number 4 is the 7th overall pick from the 2005 draft, Troy Williamson. And he might be low, but he is the 7th. He was the guy. I mean, you just traded Moss and you get the 7th overall pick. Okay. So you're like, okay, we can replace him or we can get a good player, whatever. You take a guy based on his speed at the combine, and he literally, I say this without any prejudice of like overstatement here, can't catch the ball. He can't catch the freaking football. The whole, this offseason we sent him to Oregon to work at the Nike Vision Clinic. It's going to fix everything. It's going to fix, and this is going to be great. And the lasting memory of Troy, unfortunately, who I think has gone on to become a
motivational
speaker. And it's great. It's a motivational speaker.
I don't think it's as much of his life now, just kind of digging through.
Exactly.
But there was a time where he did like keynotes about how to overcome adversity and whatever. Yeah.
But those 2 passes in his last ever game as a Viking against the Broncos in Denver in 2007.
That was bad.
A crossing route that was a perfect pass that he just drops. And then, God rest his soul, the late Tavares Jackson throws him a perfect deep ball. He could have walked into the end zone and it clunks off his face mask. Troy Williamson, number 4 on my list.
Yeah, it's rough. So I did find his LinkedIn profile too. Oh, interesting.
I like how these receivers all have LinkedIn profiles.
So he does CrossFit stuff and
sure.
But two things. So he does still have motivational speaker, 19 years and 7 months as a motivational speaker down in South Carolina, Georgia. Growing up through much adversity, overcoming many obstacles, Troy Williamson has endured and is now the founder of the Fighting Against the Odds Foundation. He wants to provide diverse learning experiences and opportunities for young children. It's a great cause.
Absolutely.
He also is a restaurateur.
He owns Snack Shack.
Him and Bernard Berrien. No, it's the Witch sandwich franchise.
Oh, okay.
I don't know how if he's a franchisee is what it says here.
Okay.
But yeah, Witch. I feel like there's down in Florida. I feel like in Fort Myers we had some Witch when we'd be down there for spring training.
Really?
Good sandwiches.
Don't recall the Witch.
Anyways.
All right, so Troy's number 4 on my list. Top 3. Number 3. Someone we're all familiar with. Free agent addition who at the time was going to cover basically the entire earth because he was unbelievable as a cornerback. Fred Smoot. Maligned, you say? There are not many Vikings whose lasting memory as a member of the team is one of abject failure, and the fan base embraced it. When Steve Smith caught that ball in 2005 in Carolina in the same game that Culpepper ripped up his knee, and he caught it on Smoot. And I think he was down at like the 2 or 3, okay? And he goes into the end zone, sits down, and mocks rowing a boat because the Love Boat thing had just happened. And everybody, including Vikings fans, laughed. And then Smoot took himself out of that game because he was, in air quotes, hurt. And the best part about that week was Ticey decided that he was going to, and I think it might have been the only time Tice did this. He was going to have Smooty exclusively cover Steve Smith. So play sides against Smith.
Shadow him.
Yeah, and Antoine was told, hey, buddy, you're going to be on the other, Antoine, tons of pride, right? A great player, a pro's pro, was told, you're going to be away from Steve Smith. And Steve Smith made a fool of Smoot. And then Smoot, I mean, my God, he's just, I think it's very safe to say that, in my opinion, he could have contended for 1, but I'm going to be very kind and just put him 3 on my list.
The famous quote is, 75% of the world is covered by water. The rest is covered by Smoot.
Yeah.
He said in the third person.
Unfortunately, it was not. He talked a great game and was just not that good.
We almost got him on the show. Excuse me, like in 2000 or not 2000, 2020.
I remember you
when
told
me
me
first.
this, yeah.
I DM'd him. He got back to me, and I was like, "Oh my God, Fred Smoot wants to come on Purple Daily," and then I could not lock him down.
Found out I was part of the show.
Yeah, probably found out Judd was part of the show.
Probably did some research there.
Bailed off of it.
Investigative beat writer Judd Zolgad. Okay, number 2.
Number 2. So as far as I was concerned, the last 2 were going to have to involve a quarterback and a kicker. Okay? The only question was who goes where. And number 2 is Christian Ponder.
Wow.
Maligned is a perfect word. Reviled, a perfect word. Disappointment, a perfect word. Bust, a perfect word.
Yeah.
He is
contentious with his family, his wife. His wife blocked half of Minnesota on Twitter, I feel like.
Keep going. You can come up with more words. Yes, exactly right. Christian Ponder, look, he was a nice guy. This was not a personality problem, but it was from, it felt like from day one, it was like, really? Is this it? And yes, he was on a team that went to the playoffs. And yes, that December, his play improved, but Peterson was phenomenal that year. That was the 2,000-yard season.
Yeah.
Absolutely incredible. Christian Ponder. I think there's a few names on this list that if you say the name, people's faces go, ugh. Christian Ponder is definitely one, and he happens to play the most important position on the team. So he's number 2.
Another entrepreneur as well, taken his football stardom and has moved into the business sector.
Might want to not say stardom. He just took his football. He took his football failures and
football platform.
Exactly.
So there is a write-up on Fox Business from last December here. instead of trying to develop a game plan to get his team into the end zone, Christian Ponder is now trying to find a way to get professional athletes into boardrooms. So he has partnered with a couple other business people, let's see here, to form a private membership platform solely for former collegiate, professional, and Olympic athletes to help network and give them leadership guidance to take on a whole new playing field. So he's trying to get athletes to go from, hey, your career's over. What do you do now? Let me help you get into business in some way. I don't know what the business model is here, but it's like a private membership for former athletes.
We all know that if things go wrong, that the fixes are easily correctable. You just got to look at the film.
There's
How many
that
times
bus.
did we hear that?
There's that bus. It's leaving Matt Khalil and going over to Christian Ponder now.
It's easily correctable.
Turns out it wasn't so easily correctable.
Well,
I think
the new career.
I think like his lasting legacy is that what was his last year? 2014.
Yeah,
so
right
he's
around
been gone for 10 years. And for 10 years, Vikings fans have been cold sweats at night, tormented mentally about the idea of drafting another quarterback or like moving the chips in and putting them on a young quarterback. Mm-hmm. And man, we felt that in the last 2 years leading up to, well, when are they going to finally draft the successor to Kirk? And now it's J.J. McCarthy. And I think there's just a lot of people walking on eggshells, Vikings fans, because of what Christian Ponder did to our psyches.
That's pretty impressive. 10 years of fear.
It is.
That's a very impressive statement. I agree, but like, think about that. 10 years after the fact, we're still so scarred by everything that completely just blew up.
Yeah. One more quote here from Fox Business. Ponder said he didn't have a specific instance. He's saying like the dumb jock is kind of a thing that gets thrown around. And he said he didn't have a specific instance in which he was called a dumb jock, but he's experienced odd moments from those in the corporate world. I think it's usually the tone, he told Fox Business, the tone of which people have a conversation with you and assume that you know very little, or then they're surprised like, oh, it's crazy you know so much about the stock market or whatever. So he's just hoping to open new doors for athletes.
I hope he's successful. Good for him.
Good luck with that.
Yep. Awesome stuff.
Okay.
Finally, number one, numero uno. Not going to be a surprise because you talk about cold sweats. This is the ultimate one. Despite his perfection until that moment in the 98 season, Gary Anderson is number one.
Yeah.
So I do have a kicker at one, and I tried to separate Walsh a bit. But this
I wasn't
one,
sure where you're cut because you said kind of like since 2000, so I wasn't sure what you were going to do with him.
Yeah.
With this cutoff.
I brought him back in.
Okay.
I had to. So it's 9 guys from 2000 on, but I had to have, and it's close enough, but I had to have him in there. I don't know of a player's name that causes more fear, that causes more paranoia, that causes more heartache. Like you literally have, what's so weird is because that team was so good, you have this huge, huge group of fans, young fans at the time, who adopted this team, and it ended with that. And what's weird is it didn't really, like the Vikings had chances. You go back and watch that game. That if he makes that field goal, I think it puts him up by 10 at that time. So it didn't end with that, but in the minds of most, it did. And so yes, I did allow one guy from pre-2000 on 2 years beforehand. Actually, one.
He kicked for a few more years, but that missed kick kind of ruined his life in some ways. Like Mike Morris, who was the long snapper, said, like, I mean, you look at his numbers the year after they took a dive. He had it ruined him mentally behind the scenes, and I think it affected his relationship.
He had
too.
He had some personal things then, I think, shortly after that were unfortunate, and it sucked because he's a really, really nice guy.
It's probably the highest profile non-Super Bowl missed kick in NFL history.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think you're probably right. I'm trying to think. I mean, to your point, Super Bowl wise, Norwood had the miss against the Giants in the Super Bowl that could have won it, right? but I'm trying to think of like playoff kicks. I mean, because the Blair Walsh one hurts, but it was the first round. Like, that's my thing is it's the first round, so it sucks, but you don't know where that team would have gone. If the Vikings take a 10-point lead, the Falcons are done. You are going to Miami. And we can argue about, well, it's good they didn't go because they were so banged up. But you were going to go with a team that deserved to go.
There was the, even though it was, again, the first round, which I guess doesn't quantify for Judd's ranking, but the double doink with the Bears kicker like 4 years ago.
Yeah, it's a good one.
The double doink that went off, which was pretty. That was more funny than I think it was like amazing. It was just like doink, doink, doink. It just pinballed.
Well, it's funny to
out.
you.
Yeah, I thought it was hilarious.
I'm sure Bears fans are like, oh, that was a great one.
There's another one too recently in playoff memory that I think I'm blanking on too that I just can't think of.
I think it's got to be either like a championship game. Like, I don't think it can be a first rounder because you don't know unless you're a phenomenal team and your kicker screws you, right?
I guess on the make side, the Adam Vinatieri make in the snow in terms of just make or miss most famous kicks non-Super Bowl, the Vinatieri one from 23 years ago. So, I think the only real issue I have with your list is Blair Walsh at 6 is a little low for my taste. I have no issue with Gary Anderson 1, no issue with Christian Ponder 2. I think you nailed those. I would have to move Blair Walsh up to 3 ahead of Smoot.
Oh,
I might move Smoot behind Troy Williamson. But I get why I get what you're doing here. I just
Smoot was more despised. But I mean, I'm also partially biased because I was like around Smoot and he was just such a jerk. So I can't help that.
Karma.
Well, he just was so. I mean, I have never seen a guy who ran his mouth in a locker room and cut down teammates a couple times like that guy did.
He did love to. Yeah, he was.
And I mean, he cut him
an
down.
Alpha male personality.
It wasn't fun. He cut him down.
So the bully factor for Fred Smoot. So you've got Gary Anderson 1, Christian Ponder 2, Fred Smoot 3, Troy Williamson 4, Matt Khalil 5, Blair Walsh 6, Erasmus James 7, Bernard Berrien 8, Laquon Treadwell 9, Josh Freeman 10. Yep. The most maligned Vikings in recent history, according to Judd. And supported by Federated Insurance as well. In fact, maybe
you're going to weave this one in.
Maybe you're a business owner maybe you're a restaurateur. Maybe you have a private membership company. Maybe you're venturing out into the business world and you got to make sure you have a game plan in place to stay focused on safety, preventing claims against your business. Let Federated come in as a guiding hand to support your business. 100+ years of experience. They're based in Owatonna, Minnesota. They are one of us. And they're rated A+ superior by AM Best Company as well. Find out more at federatedinsurance.com. At Federated Mutual Insurance Company. It's our business to protect yours. Great list. It's a great list.
Whew. It's a lot of work, a lot of angst in going through names as well. There were more choices, so certainly if there are people or players I did not include, feel free to throw those in the comments. I'd be curious.
Definitely non-players.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see like who else I either missed or that you feel is more maligned than I did. So
yeah, throw them in the YouTube comment section or hit us up on Twitter/X and let us know who are the biggest snubs. Who did Judd miss?
Who deserves to be more maligned than I maligned of myself?
Where should we drive the bus next? Who's 11, 12, and 13?
I feel no sympathy for Khalil. I feel no sympathy. Guy did just fine with his pizza shops.
Yeah. Also, if you're just a Purple Daily listener, but you also are a Minnesota sports fan, don't forget Score North. We have a network of other Minnesota sports podcasts. You can find all of them at scorenorth.com, SKOR north.com. Flagrant Howls with NBA free agency. We got the Wild Draft recap from the weekend and NHL free agency. So Judd's Hockey Show. And then Dex is all over Twins on a daily basis with the Score North Twin Show. That's our third YouTube channel that we launched just a few months ago. So the Score North Twin Show on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify. And then Minnesota Sports with Mackie and Judd for scoop sessions. And write that down. We got you covered. Okay, there goes Judd's bus again. We'll see who it's on the hunt for. See you guys.
There could be more.